Hey Kira, alright, so here is your past life spread. So what we're going to do is look at where we were, what we did with the majority of your time there, an important day, relationships and feelings, another important day, relationships and feelings, the death and lesson learned. We'll get hints of time throughout. Stuff's already coming through. So remember, you just want to make connections where you can. I'm going to relay images and impressions, and your job's going to be to make those connections. And remember, there could be direct and opposite connections. So direct connections is when you directly connect or resonate with what's coming through. Opposite, again, is keep your mind open for what may come through where you relate to it in a very different way, just because our soul experiences certain things and wants to come back and experience other things, okay? All right, so you might want to grab a notebook and pen, and let's go ahead and start. While I was shuffling what was coming through, basically, I couldn't stop singing the song, well, I think it's called Gangster's Paradise, but how I know it is when I didn't hear that song first. The first time I heard that, a version of that song was Amish Paradise. However you might relate to that song first of all, and if you can't, that's fine, but it was coming through, and it was the feeling of, I'm leaning more towards, like, it's interesting because the Gangster's Paradise, Amish Paradise, to me, it's not really about, like, the song itself, it's what it makes me think of kind of thing, and when I think of that kind of thing, like, first of all, like, Paradise and then Amish Paradise, it's there's a feeling of, like, isolation, which I feel like is going to be coming through here for some reason, but, like, a feeling of, like, isolation. Like, paradise is not for everyone, right? It's like hardly anyone stumbles upon paradise. So there is and you think, like, oh, paradise is, like, oh, amazing, but really what's coming through with that is the feeling of an isolation, like an isolated aspect of life. And then also that it's also the idea that something isn't what you think it is, right? So when you think of paradise, you think of something, like, most people think, oh, paradise, it's idyllic, it's what I want, it's the goal, it's everything great and wonderful. But then if you think about it a different way, in ways that aren't, I want to say, like standard or common, when you think of paradise, it's, well, not everyone finds it. In fact, you might be alone in paradise, and is that paradise? I mean, for some people, I'm sure being alone is paradise, but you know what I mean? It's just like the idea of looking at something a different way than you think, and this may be coming up in your life right now, just in case. You might find that things are not what you thought they were, and usually we see this when people are kind of coming out of, like, a bit of a brainwash programming kind of thing that we see a lot lately. When people are waking up, they're coming out of, like, a brainwash where it's like, oh, it's kind of, it can be kind of stunning, where they're like, oh, I thought this person was actually a good influence on me, but really it turns out they just care about themselves and their own agenda, and I just bought into it. And usually we see this with, like, parents or, you know, even very close friends, and it's not that they're, like, malicious or like have bad intentions. It's that they could be doing things subconsciously where you suddenly one day wake up and realize, I don't want to go along with this anymore. It feels weird, and it feels like I'm not empowered or in charge in my life. So I feel like that's just coming through again. Like, it could be just an example, or it could be something that either you're going through now or might be coming up too soon, which is not a bad thing. All it is, it's kind of an eye-opener, like an eye-opening experience that might sound kind of intimidating, or like, oh, I don't want to go through that, but it's actually a really good thing because it is very empowering. And on the other side of these realizations comes a life of more empowerment and power. So just consider that. But it feels like that song was just coming through. That could be one reason. Another is if you connect with those songs in certain ways that mean something subjective to you. You know what I mean? And it can even be the kind of thing where, if that song, for example, if you connected that song to a certain period of your life, go back to that period, so to speak, like, think about it and see if there are any connections to that version of you and now, like, what's happening, or the differences, or something where there's something you can glean from it, like a lesson from that period of your life where that song might have played into that, if that makes sense. And if not, that's fine. I just want to cover all the bases so you can just have things to think about and feel out and process and things like that. Okay. So that song, right, okay. Now, as far as the isolation thing, what was coming through here, as I was shuffling, was desert landscape, desert. And so let's just go ahead and dive into where we're going, because it totally feels like we're going to what we would consider to be, I want to say, Egypt. And sometimes I get Egypt in lieu of what's surrounding Egypt because it's most prominent to me, like, or I guess I connect with it more than, let's say, if you do a Google search or whatever and look up that, I think it's Mesopotamia, but right next to Egypt is another place that is known for ancient times being a civilization, like a very profound civilization, where maybe even Egypt was part of it. I don't know, but it's that area. So any connection to that area, whether you were interested in learning about, or when you or you read about or see movies about ancient Egypt, ancient Mesopotamia, if that's what it's called, that area. So, and if you don't connect, that's fine, but that's where we're going, and it feels like we're plopping into, again, like, it feels like the ancient times, like what we would consider to be ancient times. So what we're technically looking at is kind of an old human soul here. So if you've ever felt like you've had an old soul in a human sense, that is accurate and true. I mean, I'm of the belief that everyone's soul comes from the same source. So technically we're all the same age, but when I hear of an old soul or feel an old soul, I consider it a human old soul, earth old soul, right? Like that kind of thing. So when you come across new souls or young souls, to me that means they haven't been human or on earth very long. But it doesn't mean their soul is like brand spanking new. It just means they're new to earth. At least that's how I feel it out. And I usually don't actually talk about this kind of thing, so maybe there's something about it that you find either intriguing or helpful or something, I don't know. But we're talking about an old soul. So right, so the desert thing. Okay. So, what you do with the majority of your time. So this is the healer card, and it feels like we are looking at just like what you would consider to be a healer. Like, and I say that because oftentimes when we get the healer card, it can be someone who is a good listener, or someone who is what's it called, like someone who can like put babies to sleep very easily, and that's healing and soothing. A lullaby. We even got someone who like sings lullabies, like that kind of thing. So there's all various ways of being a healer, doctor, but there are things that are not like medically connected where you can be a healer, whereas this feels like we're looking at someone who is like what they would consider to be medical. And as I say that, there is something about snakes coming through, but used for medical purposes. So what you might want to do is Google and see if you can research anything about ancient Egypt, snakes, medical or medicine. It's almost like the feeling of like, how they used to like bleed people? From like if they were ill or something, they would bleed them with like leeches and stuff. There's something about blood and snakes having to do with this. It could be, it's almost like I'm seeing it's like a symbol of a snake rather than maybe an actual snake, but there is something about the snake. It's almost like, oh, there's a snake symbol, and then they're flashing like a red cross sign, like how we see the red cross as like the ambulance or something like that. So, just Google that. Just Google and see about, ancient Egypt, or even now, even they might have kept this. It feels like it would be something that would be like, how the evil eye is just like still like, it's almost like trending now, but it's an ancient tool. That's what this feels like. So see what the snake meant to ancient Egypt, and what's it called? And how it was connected potentially with healing or medicine, which is kind of interesting because I don't equate snakes with healing. So you look into that. And if you feel connected to snakes, like if you feel like there's something about the snake that I don't know, maybe you always wanted a pet snake, or you find them admirable, or are intrigued or drawn to them whenever there is a purpose. Like if you're at the zoo and there's a snake exhibit, you might be someone that's like, oh yeah, I want to go look at that, like that kind of thing. So look that up. And also this is really coming through so profoundly. For some reason, I'd love for you to go ahead and look up snake medicine, as in like shaman practices. They practice with animal medicine. So look and see what the snake might mean according to you know, like shamans, like snake, you know, like the power animal or something like that. And if you connect with that by any chance, if the meaning of a snake, as far as like a spirit animal, power animal, medicine, whatever it is, you might want to process that a little bit and see how you might be able to use the energy for you, because we're looking at someone who's very connected here. And this, I would, and also there's something about, now we're talking about snakes, right? So the venom, almost like like an anti, what's it called? Like anti-poison or anti-venom. You know how when people get bit by snakes, they go and they get like an antidote for it, and in the antidote, it's like a vaccine, right? Where they take part of the sickness, put it in the thing, and put it in someone to get them immune to it. Go ahead and see if you can find if they did that in ancient Egypt, if anti-venom, where it was invented, or if it was used back then, because we might be looking at someone who is working with anti-venom in particular, because the snake keeps coming through so strongly. And the teeth, there's something about the teeth of the snake. So I'm not looking at like a garden snake here. I'm looking at like it's almost like what I would consider to be, I don't know a lot of snakes, so it looks like a cobra, like the thing where it's like the big pretty heads, you know, where it gets wider at the top, or even it could be a cobra or python or something like, I think it's a cobra, and it's dark. So you might want to even look and see if there were any snakes in this area that was prevalent at the time, the kinds of snakes. But anyway, if you can find that, that'd be so fascinating. But we're looking at I'm just going to go with it, okay? I'm going to go with your aspect here being someone that works with poison or venom. It could be working with snakes and or reptilians in general, or things like that. So again, how you might connect is if you are drawn to these kinds of creatures in this life. The opposite would be if you cannot stand them, if they scare you, if you want to stay away from them. I mean, I know it's like, hey, if you see a snake and you don't know how to identify it, of course, stay away from it. But it'd be like, you know, a fear, like a fear kind of thing, with the opposite connection. Because here there's a handleability about it. So this would also indicate a direct connection would be if you are someone that's not squeamish with things that a lot of people are squeamish about. From like snakes to cockroaches to, you know, like things where people are like, you know, like that kind of thing. You might be someone that's just like, here, I'll hold it. You know, that kind of thing. Okay, yeah. So it feels, so I guess what we are getting to and narrowing down is this person feels like it's someone who has a specialty in the healing field in this ancient place and time. And it also feels like he does not work on his own. Like, it's not like he has a solo practice. It feels like he works for someone of higher, like, it's almost like I want to say whoever is in charge at the time has him on retainer, if that makes sense. So it's almost like he's at someone's beck and call, but he's like highly regarded, highly respected. And I say he because I guess we are looking at a male here. Highly regarded, highly respected, paid handsomely, you could say. I want to say he's even given, like, the word quarters comes through, because I feel like we're looking at someone who, like, if there was, let's just say there was like a palace, right? Like, let's just say like we're the main, like if there was a king or an emperor and there was a palace, or he was given his own quarters in the palace, because it would be the kind of thing where if he was needed in the middle of the night, get him, that kind of thing. So that's really interesting, which means that there would have been a need for that. Almost like I want to say, if there were like free roam, let's just like pretend there were like this place we're looking at, free roaming snakes or something like that, like where it would actually be like the possibility of needing the specialty was high enough that they would keep him so close, right? So it's almost like the same thing as having a physician on hand or an overnight nurse on hand, which I feel like there was a lot of people on staff, almost like where they were in the palace because it's like that, like a doctor on hand, but a specialty doctor. So honestly, it's almost like I want to say there's a reason for that, and it could be because whatever the specialty was, that there was a very, like, there was a risk, like always a potential risk involved that they would need you. Okay? This would actually indicate, quite frankly, as I'm talking, it feels like the idea of if you wake up in the middle of the night, if you're someone that you cannot just like go to sleep and sleep through the night and you wake up, or if you're a light sleeper, that could make sense too, because it would connect to this guy always being available. And now that we're talking like that, if you find that you are someone that makes yourself available to other people, that's a connection too. But when I say that, and if you connect with that, I want to follow that up with saying that's coming through, because in this lifetime, that's not your priority anymore. And if that's the case, and you notice people coming to you wanting your availability, you need to, if you don't already, start picking and choosing, like being selective with who you do this with, because it's almost like I want to say your focus should be being available to yourself as a priority first and foremost. So if you are seeing people, I want to say it's almost like the kind of thing where you might find yourself putting something off that you're like about to do. Like, let's say you planned a trip to go on a road trip or go out of town, and someone needed your help. You would be like, okay, I'll put the start of the road trip off a couple hours and I'll help you with this and then I'll go. No problem. That kind of thing. If that's the case and you find that you do that kind of thing, or even like come back early to help someone, that kind of, this would be, you need to start seeing those as opportunities. Or a lot of people are like, a test. I don't like the word test, but it's like opportunities for you to realize that you need to start saying no and to put yourself first. And maybe you're already really good at that, and that's great if you are. But in the case that you find yourself doing this, there's nothing wrong with making yourself available when you have free time and you're not doing something for you, or even free time though. Like if you just want alone time, you never have to cut alone time or taking you time, even if it's just to meditate or breathe, you're just breathe by yourself, you just want quiet space, you never have to cut that short. So just make sure that you are not cutting into your own like you time to be available to other people. Okay? Unless you really want to. Okay? Unless you really feel pulled. So just food for thought. But we're gonna go ahead and before we go to the first important day though, I do want to say another thing that you might connect with is if you've ever had a desire to work, and this is going to sound really like weird, but to like work with like a zoology, animals, veterinary science, but almost like I want to say specified, like it, and if not, that's totally fine, but it's just that it's such a specialty here. It could just be, it doesn't have to be animals, just because this feels like it's like snake or something like that, poison. It might be that if you've ever been interested or had the idea, like growing up, or even now, whatever it is that you do with your life, to go into a field that is highly specialized. And I say zoology almost like because there's like, it would be like a very specified form of animal science. Or if you were into or like learning about the science where it had to do with like very specific extractions, like snakes and venoms, right? It would be about like, there's also like the idea, like there's chemistry in that, right? So there's like potions and alchemy and concocting and if you've ever been interested in that kind of thing, like concocting things, that would be a connection. I know that's random and weird, but just in case. And then also if you find yourself either wanting to, have ever wanted to kind of thing, or are in a field where it is a very, like a niche, like a specified niche, and it's, so if you're there now, or if you desire that, like wanting to get narrower and narrower with like a niche, a cool little niche that not a lot of people are in, but it's really interesting to you, like that kind of thing, that would be a connection too, because that's what this is. It's like so specified. It can also just mean that you pay attention to fine detail. Okay, so connect however you can with that, and we're going to go to the first important day. Okay, so the first important day here, we have the so long farewell until we meet again card, And this is the spouse card. This is betrayed. Okay. So, what is happening here is it's confirming that you do work for someone who is very high up, or what we would consider to be royalty or head of government or whatever it may be. And it feels like there was something like an attempt of killing his significant other. And it's almost like I want to say, it was almost like, okay, so it feels like what we're looking at is, it's like a plot of a freaking movie here. It's like, it feels like it was set up to make it look like someone got hurt or poisoned or whatever it might be. And you might, honestly, this might be, we're looking at you being, what is that called? Like a toxicologist or a poison person instead. You know, it could be snakes, but it could also be, we'll just go ahead and say it was venom and poison and toxicity and things like that. Okay. So it feels like someone poisoned, let's say the king, there's an emperor and his lady, or the king and queen, right? Like that kind of thing. So it feels like someone set it up to make it look like someone poisoned someone, and it was very underhanded, and they wanted to make it look like a setup, like it wasn't like an assassination attempt or anything like that. But it was, and it feels like it was done almost like, I want to say, to get back at like the king or the head guy, whatever, to get back at him, because it feels like he valued his partner or loved the partner. It didn't feel like it was like, oh, an arranged marriage, and it feels like there was actually like something about like being doting on her almost. And so it's almost like what's coming to mind, oddly enough, is Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon, the historical figure, and he and his Josephine, right? And they wrote love letters to each other. Like, it was like passionate love. It was like real passionate love, or like, there's like real love there. It feels like an equal to that. So that's what they're giving me, as far as to give you a sense of the love between them, that it wasn't just platonic or just to unite two kingdoms. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, there's love. And it feels like someone killed his love. And I feel like that's the betrayal that came in. And you were called in to try to help. And because it feels like she didn't just like die like this. It felt like there was something like toxic that was killing her. And it feels like when you got to her, there's nothing you can do at that point. And at that point, it's like, okay, what they're showing me is like you're at the bedside, and you've done whatever you've done, and then you have to give the news and step away, so that the next people coming into her, like to help her, were the people, and this is really dark. Like, so it's the people that are on staff to make death easier. I don't know what that means, but it's almost like, I want to say, it's not like prayers. It's like there's something that they give her or do to her or whatever that would, it's almost like putting her into a coma so she doesn't have to feel pain. And this is like very traumatizing. This is like not for you. I don't feel, I feel like you are, it's a traumatizing thing because everyone knows of the love that we'll say the emperor or whoever has for the woman who is dying. And it was unexpected. It's like it's like really heartbreaking. And people's hearts are breaking for the guy, for like the emperor, the king, or whatever. And it's not like he's like a super nice guy that everyone likes. It's just that, like, in the face of a love story being torn apart, there's something so brutal about it. It's very emotional. Anyway, so it's almost like, I want to say, the king snaps, and anyone tending to her, I want to say, like, he almost like was like, you're useless. And I feel like you got exiled, honestly, because you couldn't help her. And I know that sounds unfair, but it's just like how it was done. Like, it's just like, it was a snap decision, like an emotional snap decision. Like, I had you here for this purpose and you couldn't perform your purpose, get out. It was like that kind of thing. Because no one else besides you could have even attempted to have helped her based on what was going through her system. And so the betrayal comes in many forms. It comes in that the king was betrayed. It comes in that the woman was betrayed. It comes in that even you were betrayed by the consequences when it wasn't your fault. Like, you did everything you could, but by the time, like, it feels like it was just such a fast acting toxin that hits the system, and it's like, boom. It's like within hours. And so how you might connect with this, well, connect however you can, first of all, but hold on. So one, you can connect with this in a way where if you've been scared of love, like real deep, like giving everything of yourself over, kinda, not in an unhealthy way, but just like a full, like love, like having that, like love, that would be a connection. Two, if you are cynical, or, and this can be like, you know, if you've gone through phases of this in your life too, like when you were young, how you viewed it, because these kinds of things can affect us at different ages, where you can look back and be like, oh yeah, my whole youth I was so against this, but now I get it, you know, I've grown up and I've kind of seen it, but you had certain mindsets for certain reasons, and so if you've ever had that mindset, it would come from here. So too would the idea of like even not wanting to fall in love in this way, where there would be a fear of loss. If you were to lose that person, it would be devastating, overwhelming. It would change who you are, like that kind of thing. Which I know losing loved ones does change us, but it would be a losing the love of your life. Also, it could simply be if you read books or seen movies where you're very triggered, or like just almost like you don't want to watch movies where it has to do with overwhelming, you know, in love, like amazing love stories where you know like there's gonna be a bad ending kind of thing. Hold on. So there's that. Now I want to talk about how you might connect with the sense of betrayal. If you find that you are very cautious about putting yourself in a position where if something were to go wrong, you would be to blame. And by this, what I mean by this is, if you find yourself having or doing the kind of thing where you will not take risks or opportunities because you might be scared of what might happen, and that what might happen might make you look a certain way or take blame or something like that, and you find that you didn't take that risk, or you didn't do this or try that or whatever because of it, that would stem from a fear coming from here. If that's the case, if you find, and here's the thing, if not, that's fine, but if it's coming up, that kind of thing where you find yourself in a mindset where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I mean, I really want this, but if I do this and something goes wrong or this happens, I'm going to look like a fool. I'm going to look like the bad guy. I'm going to look like that kind of thing. That you need to push through. Okay? I know that, and it's really hard. I know, way easier said than done, but you need to push through, because otherwise you are, what's it called? Like maintaining this energy here, because it's like, it was taken so personally by you. It wasn't, you weren't like, I can see where he's coming from. I forgive him. He, you know, this was the love of it. It wasn't like that. You were just like dumbfounded and like, are you effing kidding me? I'm exiled? That kind of thing. So this can also mean that if you have a hard time planting roots down somewhere, or if you are adamant about planting roots, even to the point where it might not be healthy for you, where it's like time to leave, time to go, and it could be geographically or in a relationship where it's just so hard for you to uproot yourself. And I guess the word would be, I guess, change in a simpler form. If you find it very hard in that way, it can come from here too, having been torn from your homeland and cast out. Just because you were doing what you were supposed to do and couldn't help anything. You see? So if it would almost be like a feeling of injustice. If you are triggered by injustice, like almost like where you read or see something or hear about something where it's quite obvious it wasn't their fault and yet they got blamed or they got punishment or consequences, if that triggers you hard, comes from here because you were given consequences that were completely unfair and only because you were doing everything right. Because you were doing your job, you got exiled. Literally that. So that kind of thing would be affecting someone in some way. So make connections where you can, because I feel like this would show up in your life as a block or an obstacle that if you become aware of and catch it, like you understand what's happening when it's happening and where it stems from, that's the kind of thing where you could take a step forward and just trust that it's the right thing to do to move forward and out of a certain mindset that we were talking about. And it would break that pattern, that kind of thing. So it would like remove the block. So if you are feeling blocked or you feel like there's an obstacle in some way, like you need to check into your mindset and your thought patterns. And I know it's easier said than done, but you need to just like check yourself when it comes to when you're feeling blocked or limited or held back or whatever it might be, and see what's going on when it comes to this kind of thing. Okay? And if it is, you need to learn and do something where you take a step forward past almost like how it's going to feel, it would feel risky to you. And it would, unfortunately, it's the kind of thing where you're just going to have to trust the process and trust that everything will unravel at the right time and pace and everything as it should be. And go from there, basically. Hopefully that's helpful in some way, but that's what I feel like we're looking at here. Because it's unfair, it's unjust. This would indicate if you were someone, what's coming to mind is recently when they discovered the Native American children buried. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but it was a big thing on the news. And it's that concept, that kind of thing, where it's just so unjust and it's horrific. That kind of thing. So if you were very triggered by that, this would indicate if you had like a spirit, like a fighting spirit in the sense of like equality, like almost like a protester or a what are they called? Like just someone who is for justice, that kind of thing, which even if you've ever considered being a lawyer, if you've ever been considered being like not an ambassador, but maybe ambassador, someone who would be in a position where they can obtain justice for people or for a situation, that kind of thing. So just food for thought, connect how you can. If you can't, tuck in the back of your mind for a later time. But yes, so we're looking at that. Let's see if there's anything else here. We touched about roots, putting roots down versus not putting roots down. Okay. If there's anything else, I'll bring it up again, but we're going to go ahead and move to the next important day. So here we have the Wowzer card, which is like a, eye-opening kind of day, I guess you can say in a nutshell. And then here we have friends for the relationship, and the feelings here is love, light of love. So I feel like what we're finally getting to is what I was seeing in the shuffling, which is the desert. I feel like we are looking at you now exiled. And I feel like there's something like you come upon a community of people outside of the main city. And it feels like these people are almost like a mix of, it's like a hodgepodge. It's like a mix of people. Almost, you know what? This might be a community of exiled people. But there's also like a mix of people who are like natural desert dwellers. I want to say who like, almost like how it began was like desert dwellers taking in exiled people and like forging them to the community, and it grew and grew and grew. So we're looking at like a now fully sustainable community that I feel like they're in the desert, but I feel like there's also like, it's not like they're just like out in the sun and the sand. It's like there's something about like like there's like caves or something. I don't know. There's some natural landmark where they have set up fort in the sense where it doesn't feel like it's completely nomadic. It doesn't feel like they're like on the move all the time. But I feel like these people are, like, you decide to join this community rather than keep going to like another city. If there's like another city, like I'm sure there are like routes to other cities, like this isn't, it's not like, but it feels like you decide to join these people. But I don't know, it's almost like maybe like you wouldn't be welcome other places, or whatever the case is, you're valuable, you're very valuable because of your knowledge with the toxicity and the poison and the venom, that kind of thing that you do is very valuable. And I feel like you take place, you take up a place with these people, and you're immediately like welcomed and respected. Hold on. So what's going on? But it's a completely different lifestyle than what you're used to. So the eye-opener, I feel like the eye-opener is this like emergence into this completely new lifestyle, but also the idea that you can rest on your knowledge and experience to keep you, I want to say, like, there's something about you being valuable that makes you feel better. So in your current life, this might be like, it's the feeling of feeling valuable based on your achievements in your lifetime, whether it's getting degrees or whether it's your knowledge on certain subject matters that is valuable, like valuable to people, that kind of thing. So I guess it's almost like I want to say, what about yourself do you place value on? And then also I want to say, what parts of yourself are you not valuing that you, I want to say, ought to be valuing, but may not be valuing because either one, you were taught that it wasn't valuable in society, so to speak, or no one else has given you a reason for those things about yourself to be seen as valuable. And by this, I mean almost like I'm talking about like your creativity, your compassion, your loyalty. I mean, I know a lot of people put value on that, but overall what I'm talking about is value in, as in, how are you going to sustain your lifestyle, and what car are you driving, and what job do you have, and, you know, do you have, you know, successful friends? You know, rather than, hey, have you found your tribe, the people that speak your language and make you feel good about yourself? You know, like, are you indulging in your intuitive gifts and creative endeavors? You know, are you getting out into nature or traveling and experiencing things and meeting people and having experiences that may even feel uncomfortable, but that expand you and help you see the world in new ways? You know, that kind of thing. So it's almost like, yeah, so we're looking at the value, like where you're placing your value on yourself, and to make sure that you are including and being inclusive of the parts of you that are not, we'll say, objectively valuable according to the capitalist society. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Like this could be coming up in the sense, I want to say, to almost like, hey, it's time to focus on the parts of you that maybe you haven't been focusing enough on, or you might find yourself starting to focus on those things. And that's where we want to put the spotlight at this time. And almost like I want to say, you will be very surprised. Like the Wowzer card is the feeling of like being surprised by the things that you start spending time with or focusing on or learning about yourself, being surprised at how much more valuable you might find them than the other things that other people or society have told you are more valuable. You know, like I'm talking about the kind of thing where it's like you can get a graduate degree and still find that your know-how of the mechanics of working a car can actually turn out to be much more valuable than that degree. Like that kind of thing. Like where you finally get the whole, hey, life experience is a heck of a lot more valuable than having sat through some classrooms and blah, 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 blah. I'm not diminishing degrees. I get it. What I'm talking about is the point of view of your life altering, changing, and shifting to find value in things that you might not have found value in that are very heart-based versus more ego-based, we'll say achievement-oriented kind of values, which is not bad either. You gotta have both. We're human. We need the balance. But for this reading, we are talking about focusing on more heart-based values and to make sure that you're acknowledging them at least. Even almost like the idea of the feeling of like unearthing things about yourself that you might have for a very long time not paid attention to. And I almost want to say it's the sense of like that child part of you, the playful part of you. Have you indulged in that in some time? Or has it been years and years and years? And if you find that it's been a long time, we'll say, if you find it's been a long time since that has happened, since you allow yourself to play and indulge and just like that, those childish whims and following those kinds of things, your imagination, things like that, allow that to come through. Don't push it aside. It's like there's so much value in that. And I almost want to say, like, when you focus on that, the other part, that left brain part, the ego part, those values, the achievements, the degrees, all that stuff, you can meld them together. And that's when you start to feel whole, like you are a fully functioning human being, you know, and in a way you don't know until it happens. It's that kind of thing. Like you don't know until it happens. You might even, it's almost like you might even think that this is completely normal. Like this is very normal that you would think that, oh, I am at my peak. I am fully functioning. I am all the, you know, and then you go through a period where you have growth and expansion and things do meld and come together. And then you're there and you're like, whoa, I don't know what I was thinking before. This is what it is. This is what this feels like. That kind of thing where it's like you don't even know what you don't know, that kind of thing. That's what I feel like we are aiming for here, quite frankly. And, I mean, it feels like you're like there, like you're on that path. So connect however you can with that. But I feel like that the key, this love card, quite frankly, and the friends card, and it's about being with the right people, knowing who isn't right for you, at least at this time, respecting yourself enough to, even if it means being alone, to cut out energies that are not facilitating your growth or expansion. And you would know who these are, these people, or this person, you would know. And if it's not connecting now, if no one's coming to mind right now, it'll come up later, or it'll click later, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying you're meant to be alone. I'm saying you're meant to be with the right energy. And sometimes it means when you cut out certain people, you go through a period of like recalibration. For a lot of people, it looks like being alone. And then the people start coming in, because during recalibration, you start to look at things that you find valuable that you haven't, like we were talking about before, and indulging in focusing on them. And that usually leads you down a path where your tribe is essentially, you know, for lack of better terms, waiting for you, if that makes sense. But you could already be there. You could be someone who you find that your tribe is already filtering in or has filtered in already. But that's what this is indicating, is finding the right people, your community, your people. And all of these people, there is a common denominator of not being able to either go home again or not having a home, and having to re-find home or find their, you know, their next home, the next chapter, the home that they belong to, the place where, you know, they can feel like they can root down here. And all these people come together, and I'm not saying everyone was lovey-dovey, but everyone was on the same page because of what they had all gone through, which is the uprooting of home. So this can also indicate a feeling you may have had or have where you it's like not having a home, but it's almost like not being able to articulate it. Like, not, because you might have a home, you might have a house, you might have a family, you might have a whole community that you adore, and yet something still feels like it's not whole. That's the feeling. Like home, whole, like that kind of thing, if that makes sense. And again, if you don't connect, that's totally fine, but just, that's what I feel like it's just coming through from here. But keep making connections where you can. And we are going to go to the death card here. So this is the Burn Baby Burn card, which is the fire card, which we get like, what's it called? Like, burned at the stake kind of thing. But we also get like fevers and that kind of, you know, heat kind of oriented things. And I honestly feel like we are just looking at someone who, this is for like where you die. It's not even like how, because it feels like you live your life in this community to its fullest. And I also feel like you're able to indulge in more about learning about what you already were specializing in, because of a new environment brought on new like subjects of experimentation almost. So by the way, if you like to experiment with things, you know, I know that's really broad, but there's a lot of stuff you can experiment with, so it doesn't feel like I need to narrow it down, but just, you know, some people are curious and they like to experiment, others don't, like that kind of thing. So if you're that kind of soul, that's for you. But what else? Oh, but also that you were able to dabble in other areas that you wouldn't have, like learning things, experiencing that you wouldn't have had you stayed. So it's also the concept of trusting the process in the way that things happen for a reason, and the more you let go of your control or need to control the outcome, the more organic the process of following that path will be, so that the right circumstances come up for you to experience. And it might be things you never thought. Like this guy never thought he would be exiled to a desert, find his people, his comrades, and then learn and experience things that he would never have done had he stayed in this kind of posh, safe environment that was routine and never changed, like that kind of thing. Okay, so great change and feelings of injustice, sure, but once getting to the change, the part where it's like, okay, things have changed, letting go of the injustice and focusing on the present here, where he was when he was in the new community, being present there, letting go of that past and indulging in I guess a new life. And it feels like it was very interesting. Anyway, so this feels like you just passed away in the desert, and I feel like we had the heat card, the fire card, because of the heat, just like hot, like just like a hot day, but it feels like you lived your life fully, you know? And it's not like you were stuck here. It feels like there was like going here and there and like, you know, bits of whatever it might be, like traveling to get resources or whatever, but this was the home base, was the desert. Yes. So anyway, keep making connections where you can with this. Any connection with this would be heat. One, you might prefer the heat because of the happiness you ended up finding in the desert, and or two, you might be somewhere like you're like, I do not want to be where it's hot. I do not like desert, just because it was, you know, it's not the most comfortable lifestyle, you know, as far as like viscerally comfortable, if that makes sense. So in your current life, you might actually really love like the AC or like the comforts of the modern comforts, we can say. I guess a lot of people like that. I get that's kind of general, but in regards to that kind of thing, however you might connect with that. Oh, this can also be if you are always cold. It could just be your soul being like, hey, you died in the heat, let's keep it down this time, that kind of thing. Or you just, again, you might actually love the heat, and you might love desert landscapes and that kind of thing. So however you might connect with that, but that's the death. And we are going to go to the lesson here. So this lesson card, this is the boundaries card, and this has been coming up quite a bit lately, but I really feel distinctly like I want to say the boundaries here have to do with the boundaries in your own mind, in the sense of making sure, that you do not allow yourself to dwell in too much, and bear with me, to dwell in too much comfort. And I don't mean an uncomfortable life. I don't mean not enjoying indulgences and comfort, but in the comfort of staying where you are mentally or emotionally or even physically, like staying somewhere and not allowing change to happen, or not even looking for some change, if that makes sense. It's almost like, hold on. Like, I think you get it, but I want to word it correctly again. Like, it's almost like they want me to reword it, almost like, making sure that you check in, that you don't put walls up when you reach a place in your mind, in your life, like in your life and in your mind, where you're like, this is nice. I like this. This is a good place to be. And then you put walls up and that's it, and you don't want any change and you don't want to see anything else, because here's the kicker, and it's going to sound weird, but because you're happy. Okay. So it's not about being happy and then not being happy. It's about don't allow yourself to, okay, this is gonna sound weird too. Don't allow yourself to get soft just because you are comfortable. I know that sounds weird. It's another way to put it is, it's almost like, okay, I don't know if you've seen the show The Good Place. What's coming through is okay, if you haven't seen the show The Good Place, this is in like the last episode, and I'm sorry if I'm ruining it for you, but it's really coming through very strongly, so hopefully, you've seen it, and if not, it's not going to ruin the show, I promise, and the show is great. But anyway, the last episode, they get to the good place, and it's paradise, but everyone who's reached paradise, it's eternal. And they can do anything they want. They could do anything they ever wanted to do and do one, and everyone does. And then they're bored. And then there's nothing left to do because they're in eternal paradise. And there's nothing left to learn, nothing left to see, because everything's been done and seen. And so they stay and they grow stagnant, and they get bored, and they become like, they don't use their brain anymore, and they don't care about things anymore, like that kind of thing. So that's what this is make sure that you are open to, I want to say, stay curious. Stay curious. And when you get a hit of interest, even if it takes you out of a place that you consider to be happy and peaceful, I'm not saying I'm not saying to go towards non-peaceful, non-happy, but don't just stay somewhere because it feels good. When you are curious about going and trying things and looking at other things or whatever, just take that good mindset with you, but keep expanding, keep learning, keep growing. Don't be scared that you're going to lose the happy place just because you want to step out of it for a minute, like step out of paradise to just see what's over there because you might be bored here, like that kind of thing. And it's also, but this is also not about the grass is greener on the other side. That's a different concept. This is just about not growing stagnant, and this is about stopping your learning just because you are happy and you want to pause it and save it there. Rather, stay open to being curious, and when things come along that pull at you, go, even if you're unsure of where that might lead you. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you can connect with that. But anyway, yeah, so there you go. So there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections with this. And thanks for letting me read you.